A thread from Brian Cates at Draw and Strike. Let's have a quiz. Put your thinking cap on. What was the practical result of the Mueller investigation? I don't mean what they thought they were going to do. What did they actually end up exposing? Given that any thought? If so, what's your answer? Thanks to everybody who replied. Here's the answer. Whatever he and his goon squad thought they were going to do, here's what they actually ended up doing. They ended up proving a counterintelligence operation was launched to spy on the Trump campaign with no real evidence. That's right. Let it sink in. Somebody rode herd on the Mueller special counsel, making sure whatever other shenanigans it did, it returned an honest result on the main question. Was there any evidence for the Trump-Russia claims used to spy on the Trump campaign? Now, what happens when Mueller and his rabid team of attack dogs go sniffing around everywhere they want to look, and then they don't find any evidence to support any kind of Trump-Russia charges? I'll tell you what happens. What happens is what happened when Mueller has to stand there looking stupid and sheepish and admitting we didn't find anything. What's the first question that has to be answered at the Department of Justice? It's obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people missed it. Guys, I looked really hard. My whole team did, and, well, I have to report that we found no evidence whatsoever of any Trump-Russia collusion. However that got started, I don't know. I just couldn't find anything solid. Recall how little the dossier even gets mentioned in his final report, and Mueller wouldn't answer any questions about it before Congress. That's because Mueller knew early on that the dossier was junk. So where did all this lead? When Mueller and his team of 13 angry Democrats finally have to admit what they desperately don't want to admit, what does that set in motion? It throws a spotlight on how a counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign got started when nobody had any real evidence. Because Mueller was kept honest and had to reluctantly make the admission, that starts everything else moving. If there was no real evidence, how did the Crossfire Hurricane team get that FISA warrant on Carter Page? You know what? That's a very good question, and I know who can find out. Rosenstein. Hey, Horowitz, come here. Yeah, boss? I'm looking at the results Mueller's got so far. The whole thing was a fraud. Get in there and find out how they got that Page warrant. Stat. Can do. So you need to grasp this. Mueller coming up empty on evidence caused the spotlight to be thrown right back on Comey and company, running that secret counter-intel investigation on the Trump campaign that they hid from everybody at the time, even the Gang of Eight. Remember, we didn't find out until March 2017 that Crossfire Hurricane was going on. At the time, Comey and his fellow SpyGate plotters continued to bluff by saying they had good, solid evidence that started this whole process. And no, you can't see what it is. It's secret. 9 months they hid Crossfire Hurricane from everybody. And they even managed to finesse Flynn getting fired in early February before they'd have had to brief him about the crap they were doing. Then it came out, and Mueller got appointed to investigate the whole Russia thing. But the practical result of the Mueller investigation will ever and always only be this: he robbed the SpyGate plotters of their air of legitimacy. He destroyed the bluffing they had used to get as far as they did. He exposed them, even if he didn't mean to. Mueller had to go first and utterly expose there was no evidence before the next step could be taken. That next step was Horowitz, revealing in his December 2019 report the deliberate deceptions the Crossfire Hurricane team engaged in to bluff their way to getting the Page warrant approved. Mueller, then Horowitz, then Durham. That's the play. You've been watching it unfold for 3.5 years now, and many people still can't grasp it. Mueller gets guided and steered and tricked into exposing that those FBI dirty cops had no real evidence for anything they were doing. Horowitz then gets tapped to go in and find out what they did. Then Durham is appointed to prosecute these people for this. So, if you think Rosenstein was a key SpyGate plotter sent in there to take Trump out and cover up what was going on and give cover so the dirty cops could continue to operate and hide what they'd done, think about what you're telling me. You're telling me Rod Rosenstein is the worst coup plotter in the history of coup plots. While he was trying to cover it all up, it came out anyway. If that's what he was trying to do, he was an utter failure. He gave them what they wanted. He let them look everywhere they wanted to look. He gave them a super wide scope within which to search. What excuse could Mueller offer when he came up with nothing? And look, there have ever and always been two competing narratives for why the DOJ has been holding back evidence in both the Flynn case and the FISA abuse cases. The popular narrative is the DOJ is involved in a massive cover-up, and that's why they don't show us what they have. The unpopular narrative is that there have been criminal investigations underway since 2017, and DOJ does not share material evidence from ongoing probes with the media or Congress, no matter how many times people like Tom Fitton pound their chest and tell you they should. Members of Congress are subjects of criminal leak investigations. I've known that since 2017. Why can't some of you grasp this? I discussed this in my very first columns at Epoch back in 2018. When they finally rip the lid off this Pandora's box, there will be perp walks of plenty of former federal officials, but not just them. Also, members of Congress and media reporters will be indicted. But I've been told it's a sign of a massive cover-up that the DOJ won't give or even talk about the material evidence from cases it's been building to the targets of those investigations. So listen up, pay attention, move in close and focus. The DOJ does not give material evidence to or discuss its ongoing criminal cases with the targets of those cases. I don't know any clearer way to say this. If the DOJ was dumb enough to give Congress this evidence, that would mean the Democrats on these committees get the evidence at the same time the Republicans do. Did you know Congress is chock full of drunken, power hungry leakers? Rosenstein and the DOJ already proved Congress can't be trusted with material evidence from SpyGate. They demonstrated this fact when they gave the Senate Intelligence Committee a protected copy of the Carter Page warrant. Does anybody remember what happened next? It got leaked by a Senate staffer who was having an affair with a New York Times reporter. So don't just sit there on your ass and tell me the only possible explanation for the DOJ not sharing with the Congress or the media the key material evidence from the biggest criminal cases that that agency has ever handled is they are covering it all up. They will show you the evidence when the cases are at the point where making this stuff public won't compromise those cases. This is not hard to grasp. You are seeing these unsealed documents now in the Flynn case because both Barr and Durham are allowing it now. But to get here, at this point where things are now happening so fast it's getting hard to keep up, we're only here now because the ground was prepared. And many people still don't grasp the true role Mueller ended up playing in all of this. Mueller was rode herd on. He was guided. He was steered. And people actually thought that Rosenstein was a fellow SpyGate coup conspirator with Mueller and Comey. Too absurd for words. Go back and watch the video of that send-off Rosenstein got in the main hall at Justice. They don't give that kind of retirement ceremony to a crook. Understand what I'm telling you? Can you grasp the brutal truth? Once Barr was safely in place and they were getting ready to unveil Durham, Rosenstein's mission was finished. There was no reason not to drop the mask and then viciously rub it in the SpyGate plotters and the fake news media's faces, so they did. They did rub it in. Mueller and Weissman and Van Grack and Comey and McCabe and Strzok and all these other losers are over there in a corner right now mumbling to themselves and trying to figure out where it all went so very, very wrong. They may never figure it out until the trials start. Well, life goes on. I'm going to play some Warcraft.